I'm Dave Rudin, and welcome to Nothing But Net, our new rebranded FCIAC Boys Basketball podcast. It's been a long fall for me, and I'm trying to turn on a dime and go from state championship football to boys and girls basketball, but wanted to get a preview episode done before taking a little bit of time off. And joining me again this year, the coach Mike Walsh again. Good to have you back. And we've been talking a little bit more the last couple of days, and we're starting to get into, well, you've been in it. I'm starting to get into a basketball frame of mind.
Well, I mean, it's great to be back, and I kind of always in a basketball frame of mind. I watch fall
You never leave.
basketball and summer basketball, but the FCIAC is going to be exciting this year, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, let's be honest. How many scrimmages have you watched already?
Well, I mean, I've seen, I would say about 8 or 9 team scrimmage, and have a good idea but scrimmages you can't always tell. But you can tell.
I'm just trying. I'm just trying to. The viewers already know you're already hooked on this thing. The question isn't how many scrimmages have you watched. The question is, if you weren't doing a podcast, how many of these scrimmages would you have watched?
I probably would. I'd probably watch them anyway.
Yeah,
that's,
you can't.
that's the point. I mean, once you get out of coaching, it's still in your blood, and now I don't make any mistakes. I just watch other teams and see them make some mistakes. But it's great to watch the kids get back, and they play hard, as we said last year. But this year is going to be really interesting, I think, as far as the FCIAC is concerned.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's I would say, right now, parity. I would think I've really gotten up to speed over the last 2 days, and as we start going over my picks and discussing them, I know your picks and my picks were almost exact in a lot of places, especially at the high end of teams and players. But it looks right now there are probably 3 favorites. And it also looks like there's a lot of uncertainty, and I don't know if those 3 favorites are going to be, how far away they're going to be, if indeed they end up being the 3 from the rest of the pack.
Well, you say 3 favorites. I think, to be honest with you, having seen some of the scrimmages, I think that there's 5 or 6 teams that are capable of winning it all. But then we'll get surprises like last year. Who thought Staples was going to be in the finals? And they just came on and played. But obviously there are 3 teams with starters back, and they're teams that I think are going to be everyone's choice to be preseason favorites. But you never know what happens. I mean, like I said, Staples last year. It's going to be interesting.
Well, why don't we start as a foundation? We'll go through my predicted order of finish, because I know my top 6 teams and your top 6 teams were exactly the same, other than 2 that we had flip-flopped in order. And I think we've all learned our lesson at the beginning. When in doubt, pick Ridgefield. So there are 2 or 3 teams that I can see winning it all right now. And when in doubt, pick Ridgefield. They've got some returning talent. They've got Nick Skenga back inside, and he's going to obviously have a big season. They have Alistair Walsh back in the backcourt, and they got a bunch of guys who saw some time last year that I know Drew is counting on to step up and play bigger roles, like Andrew Griffin and Ian Swadowitz, who was my guy last year. And
well, let me say this: Andrew played a lot of guys last year, so a lot of these kids saw playing time in crucial situations. And I'm sure they put the work in over the summer and in the fall. I actually got to see them a couple times in the fall in scrimmages. And this was without their big guy, Nick Sanga. And they looked in mid-season form. I mean, they were, passing, cutting, and they play hard. I think that they're going to be the team to beat. I know that you think maybe Danbury is a little bit above them because they have the Perkins boys coming back, but not sure the depth after the Perkins. But I really think that Andrews is the team to beat with Ridgefield this year.
Well, I can tell you, having seen a couple of Ridgefield football games, Skenga's going to have no difficulty shot blocking, because I saw him bat down at least 3 or 4 balls at the line of scrimmage playing defensive end this fall. So, Ridgefield's done it. They were, if they didn't have to play Staples last year, they would have had a perfect FCIAC season. But unfortunately, that was their one for them. That was their one loss in the regular season, and that was their loss in the semifinals that kept them from going back. So, depending on whether you want to count the COVID season, which I don't really see COVID season as the same, but they actually had a championship that Ridgefield won, just missing out on a 4-peat or a 5-peat. So we both picked Ridgefield #1. So I think we've learned our historical lessons.
Well, I also think that, look, Danbury can be very, very good because obviously they have Cam Perkins and Nez Perkins, and then they have some returning players who saw time last year. But I'm not so sure that they saw a lot of time. So I think that maybe, Casey, and he does a great job, is going to have to meld those in with the Perkins boys, and they may be a threat to win it all. But and certainly he's a defending champ. You got to go with it.
Yeah, this is where I went back and forth, and I guess this is the one area where the only disagreement in the top 6, and it's just flip-flopping 2 teams. I have Danbury #3, and a decision I thought long and hard about. With the Perkins cousins, Cam and Nez, you know what you're getting there, and that's a really strong 1-2 punch. And I will keep an eye on Nez. He's of all the players that I know who were good players, who were capable of getting up to the top pedestal. He's one that I would he's one that I would really keep an eye on, because he had some really good games in the postseason and in the FCIAC tournament. I think the only reason I didn't pick them second is unknown. I really don't know too much about the other players on the team. So it's not that I don't think they could do it. It's just I don't know a lot about the non-Perkins players on there.
Well, I think that they obviously are going to have some talent. I think they won the fall league that they were in, so that they have played together, and I think they're going to meld together. And as I said, Casey would do a great job getting them to play hard, and that's why I think that they could challenge Richfield. And I know the team that you picked second has 3 of the best players coming back in EJ Perkins, EJ Presley, excuse me, who was fabulous as a quarterback, I thought, this year for Stanford. And, JJ Salvatore, again, another great football player, and John Winchester, who really came on last year, and he plays as well as his father did back in the day. Stanford's going to be a real force to reckon with.
Yep, you picked Stanford third. I picked them second, and same reason I picked Danbury third, just knowing a little bit more about the players that are coming back there. And as you mentioned, EJ Presley is a first team talent. He's going to be one of the top players in the league. Terrific athlete. And he had a great fall season, helping to get Stanford to the state playoffs for the first time since I think it was 1995.
I think not to interrupt, but the whole key with them is, I don't know how much depth they really have. Also, I mean, we have those 3 stars, but what do they have after that? I know he's got 2 or 3 kids that played last year. But I know that Dan is going to have to. There's a little different for Dan Latour, the coach. Last year he kind of snuck up on people. This year, he's the hunted. and people are going to be prepared for Stanford, and he's going to have his work cut out for him. But I'm sure he's going to do everything he can to take the team to the top.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, JJ Salvatore and Jeremiah Winchester, two excuse me, real good talents. Few that might be going into the season the best threesome. Uh, Again, not knowing the depth, and I thought Stanford was hurt last year by inconsistency. They weren't always cohesive. They sometimes played a little disjointed and kind of got out of sync. And when they did that, they weren't able to utilize the talents of their best players. So to me, if there's one thing that they've got to do differently, it's just to kind of run things more consistently, run their offense more consistently, because the personnel is definitely there.
No, I think last year really helped them come together, and if they put any work in the offseason, which I'm sure they did, they're going to be one of the top teams in the league.
And then number 4, we're in agreement again with Wilton, and the Warriors have they have a bunch of role players back. They don't have. Well, actually, I take that back. Max Jarvie is back inside, and he was a 9-9 rebound point scorer. So he's going to be one of the building blocks. But they have a whole bunch of players who got a little bit of time here or there. So they've got some experience. Guys like Ryan Lucetta and Luke Umfred. And then the guy
Henry Roy.
that's I was gonna single him out because Henry Roy in some of the games that I saw, I thought looked really, really good. So yeah, you can say this almost every preseason. Another team, how many guys are going to take that next step from being a role player to being a starter and being an impact player?
Yeah, well, I mean, Wilton, and talking to Joel, he's very high in his team, and he should be. They have size. I mean, they're going to start, 6'2" and over. And we talked about Jarvie. He's probably one of the toughest kids they had last year, and he's back, and he's going to set a tone for that. And don't forget, I thought as a freshman, the young McKiernan kid, his brother, Tommy McKiernan, Liam McKiernan, showed a lot of promise as a shooter. So, I mean, I think that they can be right there. They could beat anybody. So, especially on that court, the Nick Zioli court, that's a home court advantage. Probably one of the best in the FCIAC. But Joel will have them ready. I know he's had a couple kids that played football, but by the time the season rolls around, the FCIAC season, he'll have them ready. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to see that team.
Yep, I agree. You never discount Wilton. They've been one of the most consistent programs. They haven't gotten the title yet, but they've been consistently good since Joel took over. The team that probably intrigues me the most, and we both have them as our 5th team, and you're a little bit more familiar than I am, but I've learned a lot the last 2 days, is Trumbull. And you got Buddy Bray with our friend Colin Devine is back in the coaching seat again as an assistant coach.
He couldn't stay away.
Couldn't stay away. He's already been in touch with us, and it's always good to have him back. But they got a combination of players back, newcomers. They got a melting pot of talent. If everybody comes together, you got guys who played well last year, like Owen Bull, who was the FCIAC boys soccer player of the year. You've got and state. You've got Brian Elmo, who was a good role player and hit a couple of big shots. You got Brandon Fowler, who I know you've watched him and I've heard a lot about, who I'm really, really high on. And then
they have kid Johnson too.
Yep. They got Ryan Johnson. Then you've watched them, and I haven't seen them, but you're really big on Sean Wilson too.
Sean Wilson, to be honest with you, I've seen him twice in scrimmages on the NFHS network. That's great to be able to get on that and see scrimmages and Foley, whatever. But they impressed me. They scrimmaged Bassick and they scrimmaged Bunnell. The players that you mentioned, Fowler and Johnson and people, they can shoot it. And they picked up a sophomore. I don't know if he transferred or he just moved into the area by the name of Sean Wilson, who really impressed me. I think he's going to be a really good player. He's a lefty, seems to understand the game, and he's the missing piece I think that they need to make them to be able to challenge for the league title. I think that they could really do that, especially with Buddy's a veteran coach and he's been around, and now you have Colin helping him out. That's a good combination there, along with a good player. So I wouldn't discount them for having a chance to win the whole thing.
Not that I put in my preview, if there's a team that outside the top three that everybody thinks is the top three that could do it, it's going to be Trumbull. I have a funny feeling Trumbull's going to break into the. I should have been daring, and I have a funny feeling we may see Trumbull in the top three by the end of the year. But of those other teams, they're the ones I think that I think.
Well, let me say this. I think they're the staples of last year. That could be where they could go all the way to the finals and, face, depending on who the draw is. That Trumbull could be the staples of last year, no question.
Yeah, I think Trumbull could be a little bit more balanced than Staples was last year too, but that's a good analogy in terms of Staples.
Good point.
Good point. But I think Trumbull looks like they can get points from a number of different places. So and then the other team, it's pretty rare that we agree on 6 teams and with so little difference. But we both have defending runner-up Staples as our number 6 team. And for Staples is their life after Chris Ajak, who did everything, was the leader for them, leading scorer, leading rebounder. And they lost a bunch of players, but they got interesting composition to the team. They have and I talked about him a lot as a freshman last year, Sam Clacko, who I think is going to make he's going to be an impact player. He'll end up leading Staples in scoring. He'll end up being one of the top scorers in the FCIAC this year. And they got a bunch of guys like Adam Udell, Mason Tobias, who have a lot of potential. And then you have Caleb Smith, who I'm finishing up, but will be my FCIAC football player of the year. And he could end up being the Gatorade player of the year. It's not impossible. And he does all the dirty work, but he wins. The last 3 seasons, he's been to a state final in 3 sports. So if he's, maybe he'll keep the streak alive. I think it's gonna be a little bit tougher this year. And what I also am concerned about is if Clacko does what we think he's gonna do, and he sees a lot of defenses designed to stop him, where do the other points then come from?
Well, to be honest with you, I've seen.
And the other thing that you talked about is rebounding.
Well, the other thing, I've seen Staples about 4 times. I saw him in the fall league, and then I saw him in the scrimmage they had against Notre Dame at Fairfield. I think that their guards are good, and Clacko obviously is a very, very good player. He can shoot it. He knows how to set people up. He can go to the basket. You're right. He's one of the top players in the league, even as a sophomore. But he had a couple guards around him that shot pretty well. Tobias played hard. There was another guard who shot it well. I think with Staples, if they can shoot it well, they're going to be in games because they're not going to out-rebound anybody. And that's going to be their Achilles heel. And I agree 110%. When you have a kid like Caleb Smith, who was so successful in football this year and actually made the winning shot against West Hill, I think, or at West Hill on that last year against Ward to win it, or one of the shots to tie it and send it to overtime. I mean, he just wills teams to victory. And I saw that in football. I saw it last year in basketball. He helped out. And, he may do the same thing there. But it's going to take a lot of good shooting, I think, for them to be successful. And, Sam obviously is a given. How the other kids play, we'll see.
Yeah, to me, it's going to be a lot of a little bit more question mark with them than the other teams about other people stepping up. I know talking to people close to the program, they're really high on Tobias, so we'll keep an eye on him. Udell is just a really good athlete, a great lacrosse player. So we'll see. And now 7-8, 7-8 is just so hard to do, and it was.
Well, we'll find a surprise team.
we will, and my seventh team is Fairfield Ward, and I mean they lost Ryan Swaller, who is stepped down as coach. Your boy, and I meant to lead off the show with this because one area I came prepared. I went on the Union basketball site yesterday, and freshman Jack Plusser has started all 8 games for my alma mater and is 5th in the team in shooting and is hitting 51% of his shots. So you're
They will definitely miss Jack.
I'm happy he's playing for Union and doing it for my alma mater, but I looked up to see how he was doing. But
they have a new coach.
They have a new coach, which we just don't know anything really, excuse me, about this year. We do know that they have Jack Framer back, and they have Aiden Shea, who I've heard is a promising talent. Not a team I know a lot about, but just looking at some of the returning talents, and I had to pick somebody 7th. I went with Ward.
Well, I can't disagree with you. Ward's always been right there over the years, and I know they changed coaches, but at the same time, the players are going to play the same way. So they could surprise. They could be the surprise team.
And then number 8, just again going with coaching, going with one of the top returning players. I went with New Canaan. Griffin Bramwitt is just a reliable, like a metronome point guard who can score, and he's going to do a good job distributing the ball. And I saw Danny Melzer at one of the New Canaan State football games, and he got to watch 5 of his players. Who he's got 5 football players, which means they're going to be a better team later in the season than earlier, but you have 5 football players from New Canaan. The one thing they know how to do is win, and they've got their quarterback. They got their 2 quarterbacks actually. One who's a good wide receiver. They have a good wide receiver. If they decide to play 7-on-7 in the gym, New Canaan would be my number 1 team. But
well,
right
they have
now,
the kicker too. As a kicker, basketball player.
The kicker's not on the team, but there won't be any maybe last second free throws, but not a last second.
Well, let me say this, Dave, about New Canaan. First of all, you got coaching. I don't think anybody does a better job than Danny Melzer. Secondly, I think that the point guard, which is a key position in high school, may be the best point guard in the league. Watching him last year, he's going to have to score a lot more this year, I think, than he did last year. I think that as you say, those football players, they won, so they want to win. So the New Canaan is going to play hard and be competitive. Whether they can put the ball in the basket enough to be consistent, that's going to determine whether they're going to make the playoffs or not. But looking around at the rest of the league, I think that they have a real good shot because, I'd love to have 5 athletes, football players that go out and play hard and give you everything they have along with a great point guard. You got a shot in any game. I think the other thing that we haven't talked too much about that may hurt New Canaan a little bit is the shot clock.
Yeah.
I mean, Danny likes to, and he's very good at it, keeping that score down low and moving the ball and being very patient. Now, but 35 seconds, I don't, I'm watching these fall league games, and the scrimmages. That's a long time, 35 seconds, to be honest with you. And I don't, in all the scrimmages
I
that I
don't think
watch,
it's gonna have. I think it's needed. We complain about it when teams stall, but for the most part, I don't think it's going to make that big a difference because most teams shoot within 35 seconds.
well, it may make, yeah, I agree with you. I
Except for
think it may make
late in the game when teams are trying to, try to kill clock with leads.
it may make a difference in the last 2 minutes or something like that, where teams have held the ball and trying to stall. But I think a bigger thing in that, and this is will be the foul situation. They changed now,
Yeah.
where it's 5 fouls in a quarter, and you're shooting two.
Yeah.
So it may hurt the teams that come out and press and then run. Double teaming the ball. Depends on the officiate. He's going to call every little tic tac foul. You're going to be shooting 2 fouls in the first quarter. It'd be interesting to see how that works out, to be honest with you. I think that's more of a challenge than the shot clock. But anyway, New Canaan's going to be there, have a shot to be there. Looking at some of the other teams I've seen, St. Joe's obviously has a really good player in TJ Wright, but they lost several other kids that were pretty good, Murray, and they now are kind of like breaking in new kids, and the coach is going to try to do a wonderful job over there. But, I think they're, just on the cusp of that 8 seed.
Yeah, I of the teams we haven't mentioned, the one that I guess intrigues me the most is Fairfield Ludlow. It looks like John's had a little bit of a dry spell over there, and I know we both think he's one of the best coaches in the league. That's a team that could do something. There's a team that's not in the top 8 here that's going to be in the top 8 when the playoffs start. So who that is, don't know much about Bridgeport Central yet. Greenwich, Connor Parks, Darien, new coach. It remains to be seen. But
well, don't forget Norwalk. They got Jalen Brown, who may be one of the top players in the league. Who is one of the top players in the league?
And I was saving him for the next section.
Oh.
But it's going to be the question of, what pieces go with him. But he's possibly we'll talk players. We're going to take a break in a second. But this should have been my introduction. But I knew we would go off on a tangent too long with it, and we're going to take a break here in a second. But congratulations to Greenwich, because they're going to be playing in the state playoffs. We know for sure in Division One. So they're not certain what kind of team they're going to have, but we know because we're Connecticut and we do it wrong. They're gonna be in the state playoffs, as well as the other Division One teams like Ridgefield, like Danbury. I forget who else is there. Basically, I needed to take my shot at our state.
Staples is in.
Staples is in there too. So congratulations on clinching state playoff berths before we even begin. And I'm cutting it off there because then we're going to go into a state playoff tangent, and we'll save that for another day. But Mike, why don't we take a break here, and when we come back, we'll look at my preseason all FCIAC teams and discuss some of the players.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, we'll be right back after this break. We're back, and that pretty much takes care of our discussions of the teams, and you can write them all down and laugh at us in a couple of months when you see how wrong we were. But let's talk about the players, and we've already mentioned just about everyone we're going to bring up. But I did my preseason all FCIAC team, and I usually do a first team and a second team and a third team. And what I did this last year, and I decided it gets more kids involved, and it also puts makes it easier on me in terms of after you do a top two team, who's going to be on your third team and who do you cut off. So I've got a 5-player first team, a 5-player second team, and then a 12-player watch list. And Mike, we've talked about all these guys to different degrees. I felt real comfortable about 4 of the 5 guys on the first team, and the 5th broke a 3-way tie. The 4
Well,
I think are given are Jaylen Brown, who I didn't pick a preseason player of the year. I should have. Jaylen Brown would be that player at Norwalk. Cam Perkins at Danbury, EJ Presley at Stanford, and Nick Skenga at Ridgefield. Those are the 4 I think are hard to dispute.
well, I kind of agree with you on that. But I think there's a lot of good players coming back in this league. And, obviously you can pick a top 5 and you can pick a second team 5, but there's quite a few other players that may not be on that list that can play. And we'll kind of go through those. I kind of agree with you with the 4 you picked. I had from New Canaan, Bramwitz as the 5th player.
And that's who I ended up going with, and I think it's probably a little bit after talking to you helped me to decide.
Well, I just like point guards. I always won with point guards, and I like point guards.
Give Mike Walsh a point guard and just 6 players, and he'll win you a championship.
Well, as long as they're like Cedric Casimir and others like that. But no, I think Bramwitz is going to be.
I told you, who I was out to dinner with last weekend in Stanford, old Trinity people, and parents of a reserve on the team, and the discussion started. Well, Mike always would break into hives or get a rash if he had more than 6 players and didn't know what to do.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but we were pretty successful with those 6 players, so I'll take that.
Well, when the 6 are like Craig Austrian and Dave McClure and Rosh and Corey Thomas, and it makes it easier. But now we obviously you got teased a lot. You're more comfortable playing with 6, not you broke into hives. But I agree with you on Bramwit, and the 2 other players that I thought long and hard about on putting on the first team. I actually had him initially and then switched. TJ Wright at St. Joseph, who I think is a good scorer. And I think he's going to make the move. And then Sam Clarko.
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player. Like you said before, you went back and forth with him, and he's going to be the key to St. Joe's, whether they're going to do anything this year.
Yeah. I also thought about 4 players. Nez Perkins as well. I thought real carefully about him, and then Sam Clarko at Staples, and Clarko's the one of those 4 players that would probably have to come the farthest from where he was last year. Not that that's going to be difficult to do. The other 3 have more experience right now than Clarko does, who was also hurt part of last season, and the other is just guys like Clarko and Wright are probably until we see if they have other players who can step up and score, are probably going to be targets of other defenses more than some other players.
No question about it. And I think you're talking about your second team, I see where you had Alistair Walsh from Richfield, which I agree with. And you know what? Richfield's going to come up with some player that we never heard about. It's all of a sudden going to be a really terrific player. So, I mean, picking Alistair, I mean, he's a given along with Nick, but, and then
I did put Swadowitz on there because I just saw him last year, and I see all the potential there. So he's in my eyes, he's the one who's going to fill that role of players from Ridgefield. But even he's a somewhat known quality, so it's probably somebody we've never heard of. That
And he's got probably somebody else that we don't know about.
yeah,
But
sure.
looking at your second team here, obviously Klacko, he could be considered as one of the top players, guards, as he's going to come into his own. Last year he was kind of overshadowed by some of the other players, but he's a good player and he's going to show it this year. The kid Fowler, Brandon Fowler out of Trumbull, I see you have on second team.
Everybody's talking him up. Everybody's
Yeah,
talking.
well, I mean they should.
That's a player that I'm usually I like to go by the eye test and I put stock into guys that I've seen and guys with experience. But I also take stock in talking to people who coaches and others who know what they're talking about. And all of them are really hyping up Fowler.
No, I think, and justifiably so. I think he's a really good player, and I think that he's going to be part of the Trumbull mix. That's going to maybe upset the league, and it's and obviously you have Nez Perkins on there from Danbury, who I mean, he's a given. So Danbury is going to, again, like we talked about before, they have the Perkins, but the other guys are going to be the key to how successful they'll be.
Yeah, if I did the FCIAC way and had 8 players, it would have been easier to do it. But you have 10 good players, and you have 5 guys on the second team that well, 5 guys on the second team that are probably going to end up on some of them on the first team because the FCIAC does 8 players. And I bet you there's 1 or 2 by the end of the year when I do my postseason team that'll end up on the first team.
Well, I think some guys on the watch list may end up being on the first or second team. There's a
Yeah.
lot of talent there.
You know what? There's more returning players this year than there've been in the past. That's one reason I'm hopeful about this season is if you go look, some of the watch lists recently, it's like, people are saying, who is this guy? Never heard of this guy. But if you follow the league, you've probably heard of, I would say at least eight of the 12, maybe at least half, and probably 8 of the 12, even if you just follow the league a little bit. Jarvis is definitely a candidate. Kramer's a candidate. I think Parks is going to have a real good year for Greenwich. I'll tell you what, it was tough keeping Winchester off the second team.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. I think Winchester.
You can dispute me. It was
Yeah, he actually was on the all defensive team last year,
he was all
FCIAC, and
I don't put any stock in.
Never met a 3-point shot that he didn't like, and he's confident. He puts them in there.
You know how much stock I put into the all defensive team from the FCIAC?
Yeah. Well, hey, listen. All right, then watch him hit a few of those 3-pointers from a half court.
I don't the all defensive team. You know what? If you're over 6'6", you're automatically on the all defensive team. So
well,
you know what?
I don't know, but he can shoot it too. I think that's the kid.
I don't know why they're trying to emulate the NBA or something, but I don't want to start knocking things on. We have plenty of time for me to get on my soapbox during the course of the season. But there are a lot of good guys. A lot of people are talking up Lucetta. I've heard a lot of people are saying good things about Tate Mahoney at Ludlow. Not a player I'm really that familiar with. Shea at Ward. And in making these decisions also, I ask all the coaches when I send out for preview information, not only just who their players are, but I ask them to tell me who they think are the top 5 predicted order of finish and the top 5 to 8 players in the league. And most of the coaches give you everything. So the coaches know the most. So when I pick my teams, I put a lot of stock into who the coaches are saying. And there are a couple of guys on the watch list that are there because they were on they're on the list of a lot of coaches.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think that the first team, the second team, you have really good players, and the watch list, as I said, obviously I mentioned Winchester, but the other kid from Stanford's J.J. Salvatore. Uh,
He's a good
he's
one.
he's a tough player, and I thought football wise he was excellent.
He had a great year for Stanford.
Yeah, and you look at Jarvie; he's another tough kid that's going to, bring that toughness to Wilton. So I mean, I'm really excited. I think one kid that I have to mention on the watch list uh, is someone that no one's probably heard of before, but they will know by the end of the year. A kid named Sean Wilson.
I knew you were
He's a
going to say him.
sophomore, and I've seen him in two scrimmages. And boy, he has a good court sense. He's left-handed, and he's going to complement, as I said before, that Trumbull team. And they're my dark horse pick for the league title. And
I would
that's
agree with
because
that.
of the players and the coaches. And again, you still got to beat Richfield, Danbury, or Stanford, Wilton, but Trumbull's going to be there at the end.
Yeah, I haven't charted my schedule, and after we finish this podcast, it's I got to finish off the All Rudin Report football team, and then I'm gonna take a break. I don't know that I'll get to any. I definitely I can't see myself going to any basketball games with non-league games. If there's a game or two with two teams, but you know what? I need to stay. I'm burnt
The
out.
NFHS network,
I
and
need to
then hit the live stream.
if I'm going to do that, then something's wrong because if I'm going to do that, I'm going to be watching the new Martin Scorsese movie, and I'm going to be. I got a whole bunch of movies that I want to see, and the fact that I haven't even seen a Martin Scorsese movie this long since.
Well, I'll help you out. I'll check out some of those
I'm going to depend on you.
non-conference games.
I need a break. This has been, and I'm not complaining because it's been in a good way. It's been the longest season I ever had.
I know, a lot of work.
And that's because I've had more writers, so I've been able to cover more things. I mean, the site this fall has got to where I wanted to be and where I want to try to maintain it. But I need to recharge the battery, and
Well, let me say this, Dave, and I'm saying this because I read your work in the Rudin Report. Excellent job covering the football. It was an exciting football year. FCIAC teams in the finals of state, and it was really really would have been nice if they had to figure a way to have an FCIAC championship in football, but that didn't happen. But again, you did a great job in the coverage, and I followed it throughout the season. And not only football, you were into the girls' soccer and the boys' soccer, and I don't know how you do it, one guy, but like you say, it's you need to recharge the batteries. You can come down to Florida with me. I'm going down there the 26th of December. Be down there until the first.
Does Mickey have room, and do I have to go see a JV girls basketball game?
You got to go to. Well, they don't have anything over the holidays there, so
okay.
You can go watch my grandson play soccer, but that's about it. That's your sport anyway, soccer. So anyway, so no, you need a little bit of a break. I understand that, and I'll try to.
It was fun, and it wasn't just me. I was real lucky having Jeff Jacobs, state sports writer of the year, I think a dozen times, and Dave Fierro and John Nash, and photographers like David Whittam, and I had a kid from New Canaan, a student named Chris Harrison, and Greg Vossel. So I just want to give them. I don't know that they'll be hearing this, but. It was a team effort, and it was really cool to have state championship Saturday and cover all six games, and to only miss a handful of football games on days when there are 5 games where you can't do it. But it was fun. This is what I want the league to be, and I'm hoping this means we'll be able to use the manpower and cover more basketball games on a given night, and hopefully cover 2 in a night, not just 1, and more hockey and wrestling and sports that don't get as much attention.
Well, let me say this too: that you and Sean Campbell on the football were excellent. The podcast that you had, I listened to that, and I thought you did a great job for
Yeah.
the two of you. That was a good idea. Hopefully, I can do as much as he and you did. in this podcast.
Sean followed in your footsteps. You can't, I'm not, I'm not Mike Francesa in a lot of ways, but I'm not like somebody who can just talk on my toes for 30 minutes and not, and keep it flowing. And you need a good partner to do this with. And, for basketball, there's absolutely nobody who's better equipped to do this than you.
Well,
And
thanks,
Sean,
I got to say this.
and Sean in football Sean was so into it. And I mean, I remember the first podcast he told me after we finished the last one the other day, he had 4 or 5 pages of notes and he was all nervous. And I said, after the first couple of minutes, you forget that you just think you're talking to somebody else, that you think you're talking with a friend.
No, absolutely, and that's true. I can say that from doing this podcast. But I really think that this year, if you can bring that team that you had in football over to basketball, it's going to be a great, great year. I mean, Jeff Jacobs is like super. I always read his stuff. And, John Nash, he covers the sports sections for years. So you have a good team there, and keep that team for basketball and we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's really been the hardest thing is everybody, why don't you cover more? And it's resources, and it's having writers, and more people are subscribing, and as long as they do that, we'll give them more coverage, and we'll give them a really good weekly podcast. Mike, I don't know if we'll do another podcast before the calendar year. So I think we have everybody. We've whetted some appetites here, and we have everybody ready for the start of the season, which actually is tonight as we tape this Wednesday afternoon. But I know it's basketball season when you and I are talking to each other 3 or 4 times a week. And when I get to drive home from Ridgefield and only listen to 5 minutes, or if 5 minutes of a podcast, because you and I have talked the other 40 minutes of my ride. So we've been doing this together as writer coach and now podcaster for a long time. It's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this with you again. And I'm excited about the season, because now that I feel I'm up to speed, seeing so many names I know, I think we're gonna have a lot of good things to talk about.
No question about it. I'm looking forward to it, Dave. And thanks for the job you do. And thanks for making me part of the basketball podcast.
All right. Well, listen, Mike, happy holidays to you and all the Walshes. And that's a lot of people. But I have a good time in Florida, and say hi to Mickey. And to everybody out there, I don't know. My guess is first week in January for the next podcast, because I do need a break. So if this is it until then, I want to wish you all happy holidays, happy New Year. Enjoy the season, and get ready to enjoy the basketball season. We'll be back with you real soon.
Happy holidays to all. Thanks, Dave.